Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Well, hi, everybody. Here, I'm going to get out of our extreme close-up right now. Pull us back. There we go. Welcome back to the Comic Book Conversation Show. John Suntress here. I just met this guy a couple of weeks ago, and I'm thrilled to have him on my show. This is Rodney Barnes, everybody. Rodney is a guy that has an impressive resume. He's got an amazing comic book called Killadelphia that he did with Jason Scott Alexander that is gorgeous and a great read. And he's got a hell of a television career that he's in the midst of, and he's a boxing fan. So we're going to have a lot of fun. Good to see you, Rodney.
Yeah, very much so. Good to see you. And it's Jason Sean Alexander. He would kill me.
Sorry.
If you put a Scott in there, man, he would never pay for dinner ever again if I let you get away with that one.
But I'm sorry I screwed that up. I'm used to the old days when he didn't put the Sean in his name and he was just Jason Alexander.
I liked him better then. I actually liked him better when he was just Jason Alexander. But, you know, once he big times you and added another name, then it's like, oh, okay, I'm Jason Sean Alexander. Yeah.
I'm gonna bring up examples of his art. I'm gonna steal from the Bleeding Cool article that came out last August when issue 1 came out. But let's talk about Killadelphia. Man, I read it in trade, so I missed it in issues. Did you have back matter, first of all, in every issue, or the stuff that I read in the afterward?
We had some stuff, not to the same degree as you have in the trade, but we had a few things in there from time to time.
Cool. So, and again, if people pick up the trade, they will get the backstory. But if you don't mind giving us the short version, what inspired? I mean, a lot of things inspired Killadelphia, but tell us what Give us the 10-cent pitch on how you came up with this.
Well, it started when my mother took me to see Blackula when I was a kid, and I loved it when I was a kid. I like it now. I have the Subway poster downstairs in my living room.
Outstanding.
And it was kind of my take. Once something a seed is planted in your head of what could be, you're always thinking, how can I take that and make it a little bit better or do it in a different way? And so, yeah, that was where it started, I guess you could say.
That's cool. And I also saw that you were a big fan of the Night Stalker, Kolchak.
Oh, oh my God, the Richard Matheson Night Stalker, Night Stranglers, those movies of the week. Yeah, I mean, man, I stayed up late. Anytime they were repeated. I didn't like the series as much as the movies of the week, but the movies of the week were like killer. They were, and at the time they broke ratings records that I think stood for a long time. But those Richard Matheson ones, man, they were fantastic. I think it was the Stalker and the Strangler, but one was a vampire and one was Jack the Ripper, I believe. So
and it was I know the second one was set in Seattle, and it was that underground portion of the city that sank, basically, which is amazing. Yeah.
And the voiceover and all of that stuff, and it was it's like when it's hard to watch it now because they do so many push-ins and they do so many dramatic things, and the music is so over the top. But for what it was during its day, man, it was nothing could beat Kolchak. If a book I'd love to write is Kolchak. I know Moonstone's doing it right now. Moonstone's had the rights for a while, but I would kill for a shot at Kolchak just to say I did it.
That would be amazing. Would you want to do a comic, or would you want to do?
Yeah, I'd do a comic. Oh, I mean, I'd love to do the real thing, but not to say the comic isn't the real thing, but I would love. You had the 2005 remake, which wasn't bad, but it wasn't fun. Right? They tried to make it like the X-Files, I guess. The tone was off of what it was, of what Kolchak was. But to be able to do what I remember in a comic, I would kill for that. That'd be a great opportunity for me.
Well, he was this like rumpled middle-aged man in sneakers and a seersucker suit. He was the most unlikely hero of that kind of show. And McGavin was so great, I thought. I loved him.
Yeah, and it was funny because that was during a period of time where you could have unsexy guys, like be sexy guys, like Gene Wilder would always have, like the beautiful woman. And, that was he was a sex symbol. Gene Wilder was a sex symbol back then. And Darren McGavin had I forget her name, but she was like a big model type. And that was his girlfriend. And she was just laying around the house saying, I wish you'd spend more time with me. He's like, you don't understand, as a vampire. It's a vampire running around the city. And she's like, but I'm here and I'm all by myself. And I just wish you would come home. And I'm thinking, it just doesn't work. And he was broke. He was a reporter.
Yes. Yep.
But he had a sense of humor, and that kills.
You're killing me, man. That's fantastic. No, I loved it. And you're right. A lot of these remakes, they pretty up the heroes. And it's like, yeah, man. I get what you're saying about the 70s. You're right.
Yeah, Ernest Borgnine was a star for a reason. Escape from New York and, all of that stuff. It's like Ernest Borgnine, he was the guy. Poseidon Adventure,
Poseidon Adventure,
that was a regular guy in the 70s. And now everybody's got to look like Brad Pitt or be like Idris Elba, these real sexy guys with a six-pack. And a guy with a little belly could save the world, back 100%, in the 70s.
Man. Or Welcome Back, Kotter, with all the sweat hogs, and they were like the ugliest teenagers in the world.
Exactly,
with the exception of Travolta.
John Travolta was a beautiful man. He still is a beautiful man. But back then, and Freddie Boom Boom Washington,
that's true. Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, good looking dude.
Yes, Lawrence Hilton Jacobs. There you go. But the other two, Horseshat, and I forget the other one. But
Epstein.
they left something to be desired in the sexy area. But everybody else was sexy.
That's fantastic. Oh my God. All right. Let me share some of Jason's art from Killadelphia. And I'm taking it, like I said, right from the Bleeding Cool story. So here we go. All right. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to get rid of this TV ad, hopefully. All right. Sorry. I guess it's there. But you could just see, I mean, it's great. And what I love about your book, Rodney, is honestly, it's a great adult procedural. And look at these pull quotes, man. Killadelphia is stunning. And a fresh oral fable I've been craving. This one feels like a classic from Jordan Peele. And Brian K. Vaughan, Jason Sean Alexander is one of my favorite artists working today. And writer Rodney Barnes is the perfect collaborator for this atmospheric horror story with a terrifying real sense of place. Agreed. Look at that, man. No, he's amazing. and you're a man. Seriously, I love this book. Honestly,
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, man. No, well done, and now is this an ongoing, Rodney, or is it? It
is. We're up to issue 9. I think drops next Wednesday.
Terrific.
And I've written to 11. Jason's bugging me about 12, but yeah. So we're going to keep it going as long as people want to read it.
That's cool. And your TV writing is allowing you time to do this as well?
No, but I do it. It's not allowing. I have no life except doing this. It's funny. I just got off a call for the Lakers thing, and then before that, I had a call about another comic thing, and then people are bugging me about when is this going to be? When do I get my this, and when do I get my that? And I'm behind. All of that to say, so no, none of this is easy. Back when I was a kid, which was a very long time ago, I always had this romantic notion that it would be fun sitting back writing comic books, and it would just be a joy, and because it'd be so leisurely, because life would be so simple. This is a job, man. This is hard. This is like work. It's not like when I worked at Walmart work, but it's close. So
it's tough on the brain, man. And you're right. And it's deadline. Well, technically it's deadline art. And especially if you're all right, there you go, man. All right, you got it.
There's a real deadline. There's a real, you can ask my editors, all of them. There's a deadline, and I got to meet it. So there you go.
People are saying nice things, man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Fulci.
Absolutely. And Film Noir 565, we definitely want to read Killadelphia. Tell them, Fulci. Absolutely, man.
Thank you, Tara.
Very, very cool. And no, I'm really glad that people are already commenting and stuff. And all right, so during COVID, I've been asking all the creative people I talked to, did it hinder your creativity? Is it business as usual? How have you been handling the virus from a professional standpoint?
50-50. I mean, I think I'm fortunate that I have a lot of work. So, part of being a writer is removing yourself from the civilized world and sitting in a room and making a thing. So that part is cool. I mean, does it bother me that a lot of people are hurting right now, and the social unrest and everything? When I anytime I go out to some of the places that I used to frequent on a regular basis, and I see how many restaurants are closed, and I wonder what's happening with the workers, and there's so much apathy just because there's so many unknowns in American society right now that it's hard to revel in the moment. But on a personal level, being able to not have to go outside, to not have to brave the traffic to drive over to the studio and sit and do a thing that I could do at home. I'm tired of Zoom a little bit, but if you give me a choice between Zoom and having to put on pants and drive, I'm going to take Zoom for now. And so, because eventually I'm going to have to put on pants. I'm going to have to. So there you go.
We're living the same life, Rodney. I understand. Yes. And believe me, I do get it. Now I'm here in Chicago, and what you said about the small businesses and stuff, I could totally relate. My dad had a bar and grill, and I can't imagine. Well, luckily it was a pizzeria, so I'm sure his carryout business would be all right. But I can't imagine having to go through what we're all going through right now. It's crazy.
Well, if Garrett's Popcorn in Chicago closes, I'm never coming to Chicago again.
I think they're mail order.
All right. Yes. I've ordered some popcorn, which makes me feel like truly a glutton. But that big tin of popcorn that they put a lot of tape around, I got to do that once or twice a year.
I respect that. Absolutely, man. That's hilarious. I worked at the Prudential building downtown, and there was a Garrett's little pop-up store right at the bottom of it, right by the metro station and everything. So, yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic. Hey, let's if I could. Well, first of all, while we're on comics, will Killadelphia have a finite story, or do you see it as just a totally an ongoing and case to case?
Killadelphia is going to keep going in the way that it's going, and because it's been optioned for television as well. The story sort of mirrors a lot like The Walking Dead. And in the same way in The Walking Dead, the things won't go step for step if we do get blessed to move to television. But if that does happen, it'll be inspired by the book. The book is a template for what a show would be. But so that said, we would continue to go on in the same fashion in the original story that you read.
That's excellent, man. No, it's cool. And has COVID kind of made the production of the television show?
The production of the television show is really up to how much bandwidth I have to finish writing this pilot.
Understood. Yeah.
It's like it's in a line. It's like you ever been on the tarmac and you got to wait for other planes to take off? It's like it's sort of like that. It's like I got 3 or 4 planes that are waiting to take off before that one. But we're on the tarmac. We're on the tarmac, and at some point that plane will take off.
That's excellent, man. Now I want to talk about those other planes in a second as well, but I'll stick with comics right now. Are you able to tell us any other comic things you get going, or is it too early to announce?
Well, I can't give too many specifics. I'm looking at my board. I've got Jason and I have 3 other titles.
Wow.
That by the end of the spring for Image that we're doing. I have 2 for one of the big 2 companies that I'm doing. I have 1 for Oni Press, Quincredible, that I've been writing. I'm going to write a 3rd volume for them. And then I started my own publishing company. And I'm going to have 3 books come out of that, hopefully by the summer of 2021. And one of them is a licensed property from a big film studio. And so I'm excited about that as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, like I said, man, I went through your IMDb and I'm like, he wrote for what? He wrote for what? It was fantastic, man. Seriously. Like, first of all, did you get your start in sitcom comedy? Is that where you first started?
Yeah,
that was TV.
That was my first. It was like boot camp for me. My wife and kids was my first WGA job, and so, being able to be on one show for like 5 or 6 years was certainly a great proving ground, because there's this weird thing about being a professional writer. Like, you learn what you learn in college and what you learn in seminars, and there's that part of it, the analytical part. And then there's the practical part of actually making something. And in sitcoms, every week, good, bad, or indifferent, you're going to make another one. There's another one that's going to shoot and it's going to air, whether it's the Emmy one or the Razzie one, we're going to make one. And so you learn as a muscle, the routine of it begins to put you in a place where, as a writer, you write to budget, you write to what's possible, you write to, something that's producible, rather than just writing from your imagination, which is what I was doing up until that point. So my wife and kids and Everybody Hates Chris were great proving grounds to be able to, if college was college, this was like a professional graduate school of being able to practically apply what I'd learned along the way. So there you go.
That's cool. And here, I'm sorry, Scott, I'll put it back.
Hey, Scott. How's it going, Scott?
How about that? People staying up to watch us talk right now, Rodney. That's pretty
appreciate that, Scott. I wish I was in England now. It'd be cooler than it is here in LA, but yes.
Oh, you see, yeah, I understand, man. But literally, it's like, your state and everybody else freezing right now and going, oh, man, summer's over. This sucks.
You're in Chicago. So fall in Chicago, and then winter, I wouldn't want to be there for winter. But
yeah, exactly.
Fall in Chicago, Chicago is sexiest in the fall.
I do agree. And especially when it stays 50s to 70s, it's great. True. It's true, man.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. A light coat, then you're fine. Yeah. So no, you're right about it.
Once you get to that other place where it's just beyond cold, polar bear, polar capped temperature.
Below 20. When it's in the 20s, we're like, thank God, at least it's comfortable out for winter in Chicago. Yeah.
I've gotten to an age and a stage where cold is no longer,
I'm with you, man.
So there you go.
That's hilarious. I started to say, and I wondered, the writer's room, I think, has gotten a lot of attention, and I think has almost gotten this kind of glamour from the outside perspective. And I wonder, I'm sure you're aware of that. And, like, tell me, writing as a writer for someone else being the showrunner, and then, the opportunities you've had as a showrunner yourself.
Well, it's according to the room that you're in. Like, all rooms are different, and rooms are really like teams. It's the personalities that make up the room and the amount of experiences in the room. The first 10 years of my career, I was so insecure and afraid that it was going to go away that I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I could have, because, you go through this thing. I come from Maryland, blue collar life, blue collar family. So to be in this situation where people are paying you for your ideas and your thoughts, and it was just, when is this going to end? It's like, this will be a great story when I'm a security guard back in Maryland someplace. Hey, I was a writer for a couple of years in Hollywood. Yeah, it was fantastic. And it was hard for me to adjust to the identity of that, really until the last 5 or 6 years, I think. But as far as writers' rooms are concerned, I actually like drama writers' rooms a little bit more. There's a war like it used to be. I don't think it's like this anymore. But back earlier on, like my first show, comedy writers' rooms with jokes, and you would never want to hear any of those things. Where you talk about the sausage being made. It's like, if this is what got on TV, this is where we started. And we had to get to this place. But from here to here, you talk about politically incorrect. No, I mean, there were moments of it where it was fun, but there were a lot of people who were cut out to be sitcom writers and just had that delivery that was quick. I wasn't so much that guy.
Okay.
I had my path to story and humor, and I was cool in that lane, but there were certainly people who did it better. But my eye was always on the prize of genre and drama and the stuff that I loved as a kid. Like when we talk about Kolchak, and we could talk 5 hours just about Hammer films and John Carpenter and early Ridley Scott, and all of that was me. This other thing was, this is a door that opened. I'm going to walk through and I'm going to make the best of a situation. And I had enough to be able, I think, to hold my own. But when you talk about writing from your heart and what really speaks to you as a creative, genre, superheroes, the Lakers, those types of things were things that spoke to me.
Now all right, because I imagine you can't talk a lot about the Lakers thing, but I do want to hear what you can say. I imagine it's going to be on regular HBO as well as HBO.
Yes, it's going to be on HBO proper, which is regular HBO. It's about the Lakers of the 80s when Dr. Buss drafted Magic Johnson, and you had Magic, Kareem, those Lakers. And, and so it's about that period of time, not just with the Lakers, but everything that was happening in the world around that period of time. It's like there's this weird convergence of Showtime being, the Lakers style of play being Showtime. But during that period of time, you had cable television coming into prominence.
Absolutely.
And you had, the media, it became this media thing. Whereas I remember during my Dr. J. Washington Bullets years, basketball was something that came on. The playoffs were tape delayed, and you had to stay up until 11:30, and the sportscaster wouldn't ruin it for you. Or maybe he would, and you had to wait to see who won the championship in basketball because nobody was watching. And then a few years later, after really Magic and Larry Bird played the NCAA championship, and the ratings were through the roof, that the Lakers and the Celtics became this other thing that became must-see TV. And
100%.
I think up until that point, basketball hadn't had a must-see TV unless it was the diehard basketball fans. But this was a different thing. So we're sort of telling the story about that. And with that, you have the backdrop of a lot of political, social dynamics, cultural dynamics that played into the Lakers and all of the other characters, Jerry West, everybody else that was around during that period of time.
Rodney, I don't remember who the Rockets were playing, Houston, but I remember exactly what you're talking about. They would show, especially in the central time zone, it was worse on the coast, but you would not get the NBA, playoffs or finals until 10:30, 11:30 at night. And it was so bad, Rodney. We had a high school radio station in Chicago. Like I said, I don't remember who the Rockets played in '82 for the finals, but nobody wanted the radio.
I think it was
okay. Nobody wanted
to beat the Lakers. Yeah.
Okay, because nobody wanted the radio rights in Chicago to run the games. And my little 10-watt high school radio station got the rights.
Wow.
And literally, you had a bunch of kids, like 15-year-olds going, okay, you're listening to the home of NBA championship baseball. And it was because we the only ones who wanted to do it. So, and you're right. No, Magic and Bird, I mean, they absolutely elevated the sport.
Yeah.
And
again, you had Michael Jordan right after that. And now basketball's 24 hours a day, and you got a channel designated to tell you about basketball. So there you go.
Yeah, man. So, no, this is really going to be exciting. And again, I don't know what you can say. Is there a date scheduled? Where's the production right now?
We don't have a date schedule. We start to shoot early next year because of COVID. We had to delay. Like we shot a pilot like right before COVID, and we wanted to go right into production. I think May of last year, and then things got hairy, and then we talked about the fall, and now it looks like we're having a rise in cases again. So I think because of the nature of the investment, and also just from a health safety place. Waiting until next year.
Okay, man. That's cool. Well, let's talk about some of the shows that you've done, especially genre fiction that people love. And already Scott Crosby acknowledges that American Gods was spectacular.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. I talked to Rodney Barnes today, Mr. Ibis, but yes.
That's cool. That's excellent. So what was your first dramatic stuff? Was it Runaways? Was it?
No, I worked on a show Vinyl for HBO.
Oh, yes. I love that show. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was season 2, and we got canceled right before we were able to make the show. But that was my first drama show. Up until then, I had done nothing but sitcoms and nothing but comedies. And I had written a bunch of drama specs, but they hadn't really gone anywhere, and I had a couple pilots that were dramatic, but nothing that had crossed over. So after Vinyl, I did I believe it was Runaways first. Then it was American God. It was something in between, and then American Gods, and then Wu-Tang, and now Showtime.
That's awesome, man. Now. So as you said, you wrote for season 2 of Vinyl, but season 2 didn't air. So
it didn't air. So, but we still got paid. So that was
that's absolutely, man.
That's the most important part.
But I thought it was a really interesting show. Again, with my radio background that was in sports and music, I really appreciated it, and the authenticity of Vinyl was really, really amazing. And and again, now you'll forgive me as a viewer, it felt like it was still finding its feet in that first season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was a good show. I thought that it was an expensive show, and I think that was the thing. You had Martin Scorsese, you had I forget his name.
Mick Jagger, of course.
Mick Jagger. Yeah, you had Mick Jagger. Yeah. So you had Mick, and you got Martin Scorsese walking in the door. You're spending a lot of money, and that kind of says you got to hit a certain number in order to warrant, that type of budget. So it's tough. But yeah, I enjoyed the show, and we had some really cool stuff planned, and sorry we didn't get a chance to make it.
No, I hear you, man. I love Barney Carnival, and I thought Ray Romano was excellent in the show, and has proven to be a great dramatic actor as well as a comedian. I also would think that the source music would also make it an expensive show, given the amount of hits that you guys, were playing and stuff. I mean, it was true to 73, and I would assume season 2 would have been true to 74.
Big time. And you had hip hop, we had Michael Jackson, we had Donna Summer. We were doing, it's like we had so much stuff that we were going to do. It's like the budget alone for the music went into the 7 figures, if not more. So yeah, it was a big number.
It's funny, I don't think people still realize, and it's so weird because, as you say, and being an old film buff fan, it really went from original music being more expensive than using what they call source music, and now it's totally different. And I mean, try and get a Frank Sinatra song or a Michael Jackson song or a Beatles song in a movie. Good Lord. It's going to cost you a lot of money. So yes, absolutely, man. So tell me, getting into Runaways and getting into Marvel television and stuff, did you know somebody? I mean, did you just pitch? How'd you get into Runaways?
They were looking for me. The showrunners were looking for me. And I went in and interviewed, and we hit it off. Hey, Josh. Hey, Stephanie. And we just did season 1, and it was fantastic. I actually got into comics that way. I guess they liked whatever I was doing on the show, and I made it clear that I love comic books and would like to write them. And Jeff Loeb was overseeing things at the time, and we had to pitch to him every episode that we were about to do. And he would come in the writer's room, and he would drink a squirt. And I'd never drank a squirt before, but
that's hilarious. I love squirt.
It was like Tad. Yeah, it was like RC Cola. It was one of those drinks like my parents used to drink. And we would make sure he had his squirt, and he would sit down and he would listen to what we had to say. And that got me Falcon, which was my first comic book for Marvel, and which led to Lando, which led to everything else. So high five always to Runaways. I love my Runaways family, all of them, great people.
It's a great concept, and I thought it was an excellent TV show as well. And I felt bad for Loeb and the Marvel TV people now that Feige is kind of doing his own thing and everything. And hey, man, Kevin Feige, thank God, billions of dollars of movie receipts don't lie. It's cool.
No. I mean, whatever it takes to get. You never want to see anybody lose their gig. These things are so hard to come by, and a career in this business is so hard to come by. But so you have to do nothing but respect a guy that's told so many great stories. Some of my favorite stories, the stuff with Tim Sale and all of that. But nothing but great things to say about all of them. Great people.
No, Jeff's been on a lot, and I wanted to kind of give him time to decompress after getting let go. And I'm curious about. I haven't watched. I don't know if Hellstrom.
I haven't watched it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if
they keep trying to get me watching. My phone keeps trying to get me to watch it on the Hulu icon keeps having a thing, and I push it because I see a number there, and I push it. It says, "Don't forget to watch Hellstrom," and I'm like, I never said I was going to watch Hellstrom. Nothing against Hellstrom, but for some reason they targeted me to watch Hellstrom. So,
probably because they got the algorithm that you were paying attention to your show with the Runaways and everything. No, it was. Seriously, when Joss Whedon came up with the concept, it was like, I think it was Whedon, right? Or was it Vaughn?
Brian K. Vaughan.
It was Vaughn. That's right. Excuse me. Of course, it was Vaughn.
We sat in the writers' room together. Yes.
That's amazing. That is really great that he was there.
And, he'd come in a couple of days a week and sit and talk and vibe, and it's great. Brian's great.
That's excellent. Who was drawing your Falcon mini for
Josh Cassara? Okay. Joshua Cassara. I think he's doing X-Men. One of the X-Men books right now. I'm sorry, Josh. I don't know it off the top of my head. I'm getting old, Josh. I'm sorry. But I'm assuming Josh will watch this and know that, I didn't remember what he's doing right now.
Apologies, Josh. I'm sorry I didn't have it handy right now. And who did your Lando book?
Lando was Paolo Villanelli. I'm sure I'm butchering your name, Paolo. We email each other, and hopefully we'll be able to do some indie stuff coming up soon.
That's great.
Another great artist as well. I've been blessed I feel bad for these people for my mediocre words that they have to try to make art out of. And every artist so far has been fantastic for every book that I've had to do. Any of the shortcomings are mine.
That's cool. See, even Henry's here telling everybody. Absolutely, man. Henry. That's awesome. So regarding Lando, have you had the chance to meet Billy D?
I met Billy D at a comic book convention, but not about Lando.
Okay.
He was sitting at a booth, and he was just sitting there, and it was like, that's Billy D. Williams. And like Billy had a spot in my heart before Lando with Lady Sings the Blues and all of those movies. Mahogany.
Bingo Long.
Yeah, Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars.
God, I love that movie.
This is like this is the second time we've talked, and you keep stirring up my childhood and bringing me these things. But yes, Bingo Long, Richard Pryor, and all of that stuff, man.
And the guy from Animal House who played Otis Day from Honest Day in the Nights. He's in there too, and I forget the actor's name. Shame on me.
Yes, but he was in Brubaker as well, I think.
Oh my God!
In those 70s, a lot of those 70s actors seem to rotate through a lot of the same movies. But yeah.
Well, you know, for Chicagoans, we love Billy D for his portrayal of Gale Sayers in Brian's Song.
There you go. And James Caan.
James Caan, yeah.
I remember it came on ABC. Cried at the end.
Yeah. We all cried. Exactly. All the men were allowed to cry at Brian's Song. I understand. All my tough uncles.
Rest in peace to Gale Sayers. Just passed.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if I mentioned it before, Rodney. I don't think we mentioned Brian's Song. I actually got to work with Gale a lot in the 90s. And what a gentleman. Seriously. And it truly was a bit of a mentor to me. I knew him when I was a banker, a teller, trying to break into broadcasting. And when I broke through, he and his wife were customers at our bank. And they're both like, "We are so proud of you, John." And I'm like, "Wow, Mr. Sayers, Mrs. Sayers, that's incredible." And truly, we worked together for about 4 or 5 years. And every now and then he'd pull me aside and he'd go, "They treating you all right? You doing okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, everything's good." He's like, You're where you need to be, Jen. Keep doing what you're doing." And seriously, man, Gale Sayers, I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, man, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. That's fantastic. Oh, that's funny. Of course, Henry remembers his fine Colt 45.
I used to be able to do a good impersonation of the Colt 45 commercial. I won't sully your show with doing that right now. But when we get off, I'm going to do it on my way out of the room.
All right, that sounds good, man, because I met him last year before Rise of Skywalker came out. He was at this great convention, my buddy Mitch Halleck's convention, Terrificon in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And I got to interview him for 15 minutes, which was fantastic. Wow. We talked about Brian's Song. We talked about Bingo Long. We talked about everything. It was great. Because they're like, all right, he really can't talk about Rise of Skywalker. And I'm like, that's fine. That's all right. And we talked about his painting, which I was really glad to do too, because he's really a beautiful artist. I mean,
he is. I've seen his art, Stallone's art. There's a lot of good artists. Yeah.
I don't know if I hope I put this up, Film Noir. If I didn't, here we go. Bingo Long was great at the drive-in. It's nice to have an edit button. I do. I love that movie, man. He and James Earl Jones are so fantastic in that movie. That's a great movie.
Yes, they are.
All right. So Runaways, and then American Gods. Did you have meetings with? Did Gaiman sit in on the production of American Gods at all?
He didn't. We would talk to him on the phone. In the beginning, yes. Shout out to Kat, his assistant.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Yeah. Love Kat. Kat.
Yep.
But in the beginning, yes. And towards the end, aloha. Yes. Towards the beginning and end, and he signed all of my Miracle Man books. So I have signed Miracle Mans by Mr. Gaiman. And he signed all of his novels for me.
That's great.
Which was fantastic. And, it was a great experience. I mean, I think for me, when you talk about wanting to make the jump from sitcoms to genre, you can't get any better than Neil's work, and you can't get any more layered than Neil's work. And, it was it's a great credit to have. It was a difficult shoot just because we went for so long and we went over, way over where we were supposed to go. But they were good to me. We ended up all going to Comic-Con together and hanging out. And I've got a big signed poster and a bunch of pictures with me and a bunch of great people. So people that I really dig and consider friends for life.
Were you able to bring any of those writers with you to these new shows? Now that
it's mostly with the Lakers. It's mostly Max Bornstein. And myself, and we do the bulk of stuff. It's just that kind of show, and everything else is sort of me, with the exception of there's a couple of things I'm overseeing with a couple of writers, but they're all new folks, which isn't bad either. So, the way it works is it's sort of like the circus. You move around a lot, and sometimes you bump into the same people, and sometimes you bump into new people. But it's always good to get a little bit of both.
And honestly, Roddy, because again, we're close to the same age, and I will say, as a broadcaster, I'm always a little worried about ageism, and I don't know again, I mean, especially now when you're really getting the chance to run the shows and stuff like that. I mean, are you, obviously that's great to see that that's not an issue for you. Thank God.
Well, as a 32-year-old man,
there you go. Yes, sir.
Is just who defies time and is still, man.
You were a time traveler. That's all right.
Well, yes, and I will not give my secret away, and still have the vitality of a teen, of a young teen at his height. I don't really. Here's the thing. I mean, I think ageism is a real thing. That's not to be laughed at. There's a lot of people hurting because of it.
Sure.
I think I have been fortunate enough to be able to carve out a space for myself. It's still dependent upon people saying yes and seeing whatever I have to say or do as being of value. But it really hasn't at this point become a part of my, I have a guy I consider to be a mentor who I love, a gentleman by the name of Don Rio, who created My Wife and Kids and the John Larroquette Show and
that 70s
a bunch
show.
of other show. A bunch of things. And he is someone that I asked a long time ago, and I won't say Don's age at this point because Don could still probably take a swing at me. I asked him what the secret was, and he was like, just keep going forward. Just keep going forward. And I look at, different inroads to doing business. Comics was that. Not just, another revenue stream, but another revenue, an emotional revenue stream. It was another place to be able to continue to create and do things and be able to have a connection to the public. So it's like television and film are dependent upon other people. You have to go to a studio. Someone has to say yes. And, it's the same as comics, but not the same process. And so once you're in, if people like what you do, you're kind of in. And, so to me, to be able to start my own company, to have solid relationships with other companies, that sort of is over here. Then I have a box that has television. Then I have a box that has film. I've done award shows. I've done commercials. I've done anything that requires the written word or a story of some sort. I still write jokes with Chris Rock. I still,
that's great.
Whatever it takes to continue to create and keep things moving forward is what I do. So I really haven't. One day the wheels will fall off. You'll reach out and say, "Hey, Rodney, you feel like doing a thing?" And it's like, "Oh, I'm sorry to tell you, Rodney's he lost his mind, and you had to put him away. You had to put him down like a horse." And that's coming. That's coming sooner rather than later. I try not to think about it, but until that time comes and they find me, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and hope for the best.
Well, hey, man, seriously, this is really an exciting moment for you, and I really hope that the Lakers show and these other TV things work out. And truly, comics, that's terrific. What is the name of your studio or your imprint, your company?
Right now, Zombie Love Studios. Okay. The issue, we're trying to make sure we have trademarks and all of that kind of stuff worked out. I've come to find that every name under the sun has been trademarked. You got to come up with like a Quibi or a Padoodle or a Snicker Moodles or something that no one's ever said before. It's more of a sound than it is an actual word. So once we get the trademark and all of that stuff ironed out, then there'll be an announcement, there'll be a thing, and there'll be some stuff. But right now, I'm just making books. It's like 24 hours a day. If I'm not making TV or film, I'm writing comic. I've written in the past month like 6 books.
That's great.
And I'm just continuously, just keep going.
That's beautiful, man. Well, I noticed too when I was looking up Killadelphia that there was a movie like 15 years ago that had that title.
Never heard of it, but I'm not surprised. I know there's an album, Lamb of God had a song, Killadelphia.
Okay.
And I know it's sunny in Philadelphia. It says Killadelphia because people say it to me when I'm outside and or at conventions. So I know people have said the name or whatever, but we were able to get what we got for the book, and we'll see what happens for the TV show, and we'll go from there.
All right, fair enough. No, we haven't talked about the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yes.
And we certainly should.
Wu-Tang forever. I'll do the thing. There you go. Wu-Tang. There you go. Russell would get mad if I didn't do the thing, the symbol of the woo.
So, and forgive me, man. This is where I'm clearly like the whitest guy right now that you're talking to.
Okay.
But yeah, what did you do with the Wu-Tang Clan? Talk to me.
I was a writer producer on the show.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I wrote and produced. One of the writer producers on the show, and had to go to Staten Island, which is a place that's very, very cold. When I was there, and as I told you when we started, I don't like the cold anymore. I like to be in a warm place, looking outside at other people being cold, but I don't like to be cold. And we shot a bunch of episodes in Staten Island and New York during that period of time, and.
Wow.
Big shout out to Alex C. and RZA. And I hope I never have to go to Staten Island ever again. Even though they had an ice cream place that was fantastic. It was like the old time Mr. Softy trucks, but it was a store and it was a bunch of them. And they were like Starbucks. They were all over Staten Island.
Funny.
And everywhere we would shoot, I would just eat ice cream until I was in, even though I was cold, it didn't make any sense. But, hopefully I'm not diabetic at this point.
Let's hope not, my God. All right, now I'll get my street cred back because we're both fight fans. We're massive fight fans.
Oh, man, Lomachenko this past weekend.
Talk to me.
If he had just started a little sooner, I think he would have been able to get a decision. Why he waited until the 6th round to start throwing punches. And I know his shoulder, he just had shoulder surgery. But I was going for Lomachenko. Nothing against Teofimo Lopez, but I wanted Lomachenko to at least have a better showing of himself. He had 4. He really only fought 4 rounds. Everything else was sort of kind of, wake up, Lomachenko, what's going on? Now, I understand if somebody with that kind of power was sitting across from me and could punch me and knock me out, I'd be tentative too. But when Lomachenko opened up and started doing his thing, he was effective.
Yes.
And so I really was going, that's my latest boxing frustration is connected to that.
Oh my God, I'm totally with everything you just said, and it reminded me of Leonard Hagler when Hagler gave up the first 4 rounds and did nothing.
But he wasn't that bad. He wasn't as bad as Lomachenko. Like Lomachenko literally didn't throw a punch. If he threw 2 or 3 punches, then
one at a time. They were one at a time.
And it wasn't like Lomachenko. I mean, Teofilo was like whooping his ass or anything in the beginning. He literally threw like 10, 15 punches, but they were feeling each other out. But he wasn't even jabbing. He wasn't even doing anything just to keep his distance and establish his distance.
Yep.
So it was frustrating to me.
But man, I got to say, Lopez, fast combinations, strong, was in his face the entire fight.
And the 12th round is when he became a champion to me, because it's like Lomachenko was coming on, and then it looked like the 12th round. I thought even in the 10th or 11th, like he could get a stoppage. The way it was starting to look, but then in the 12th, Teofimo stood up to him, won the round convincingly, did his little backflip, and took all the belts away. Yeah, it was a sad night for me. Sad.
That's interesting because I'm a big Loma fan as well. But I got to say, man, Lopez, I mean.
Well, that's what I walked away. It's like, here's the thing. Even if you're a fan of a guy, if another guy clearly beats him, respect has to be given to the guy that won the fight. Regardless of what I personally like, we all have our guy. And I'm sort of like this with football as well. It's like if my team doesn't win and the other team wins convincingly, you got to kind of say, okay, that's your guy. I'm frustrated because I thought Lomachenko shouldn't be in that weight class anyway.
Right.
Better one class down. And especially at that age, it's kind of like Triple G. You start to see in the last couple of Triple G fights that if he fights Canelo a third time, I don't think it's going to be as competitive. And I was at the first 2 Triple G Canelo fights ringside. Thank you, Michael Strahan.
Nice.
It was fantastic. But I think if they fought a third time, he'd knock him out.
I understand. But there's a small part of me that thinks maybe because it's Canelo, Triple G might be up for the fight. That way that veterans, when they realize that
they got one big fight. It's like Ali Frazier against that guy. Like Foreman could knock out Frazier, but for when it comes to Ali, he brings the best out of Frazier.
You bet. And it's funny what you said too about you got to respect the other guy. I remember being at the Garden when Felix Trinidad fought Pernell Whitaker, and Pernell was past his prime, but kept up with him. And there was a guy. There was a guy behind me that was totally a Trinidad guy. He's like, come on, Whitaker ain't shit. And I'm like, hey, you know that's a future Hall of Famer. Come on. And he's like, yeah, you're right.
It was like Willie Pep. He was like one of the greatest defensive fighters ever lived.
100%, man. God, that night that he fought Chavez and they jobbed him was so wrong.
De La Hoya, same thing.
Trinidad De La Hoya?
No, well, not Trinidad, but Pernell fought De La Hoya.
God, I didn't even remember that. Holy shit. Yeah. I didn't even remember that. Good Lord. Wow. Yeah,
I give De La Hoya credit that he fought everybody.
True.
He fought everybody, even though he lost a lot of his biggest fights, he still fought everybody.
Yes.
And I'm not a De La Hoya guy per se. I saw him fight Mayweather live, Mayorga, and somebody else. And I love the spectacle. It's nothing like a guy that can bring everybody out in Vegas. It's nothing like, if you haven't experienced a Vegas fight, it's nothing like it in the world. But a big one, it's the most fun I think I've ever had. But that said, I was never really, he got a lot of questionable gifts over the course of his career, especially when HBO used to be behind him and they would be commentating another fight. Like, I'm watching this fight, but you're talking about something else and you're only talking about the Golden Boy. Oh, I would get so mad.
Well, I was getting mad, frankly, at ESPN because I thought they were like, everything was about Lomachenko and once he gets started, and it's like you said, hey, it's been 5 rounds. Lopez is handing his ass to him right now, beating him to the punch, throwing combinations.
Tim Bradley was for Teofimo from the beginning to the end. But Andre Ward was on the fence, and the other main guy was for Loma. Loma, Tessitore was Loma. It's like the whole thing. But, it was kind of destined in a way because it was a bigger, younger guy who 23 is actually as skilled. Not as skilled as Lomachenko, but skilled enough to be able to push him to the edge. So
unlike Loma, Lopez is a guy that could probably put on another 10 pounds and fight at welter eventually. And maybe that'll happen. Maybe down the line, maybe that's Bud Crawford's biggest nightmare is
maybe. I mean, it's this weird thing with, and we talked about this the first time that we talked. A lot of these guys that they say, here's my ageism kicking in. It's about to kick in. Get ready. Here's my kid get off my lawn moment. It's like an Up when the balloons come take my house away because I don't want to be around anybody. I look at these guys like Earl Spence and Terrence Crawford and Sean Porter, the best of the PBC guys, and the other guys that are floating around that we say are number 1 pound per pound or in the top 10 in pound per pound. And I think when I grew up, there was Roberto Duran, Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, and that was the top tier. But there was another tier like the Marlon Starlings and, this other group of guys that was under that tier that were great in their own right.
Totally.
And there were so many of those guys that were, like we talked about Tuesday night fights where you had your Greg Haugens and your Vinny Pazienzas. And I feel like those guys back then would be competitive today.
I agree.
Against some of these guys that are marketed incredibly well. But when I see them fight, I don't feel that same level. Now, some guys defy that. I think Canelo's great. I think, he fought Mayweather too young. Some guys aren't of that class. But some of the other guys, I'm like, you haven't really been tested. It felt like young Roy Jones was fighting every month. And some of the guys, he had his, I won't say bum of the month club, but he had his guys that they were hand picking for him. But when he was on the come up, before he got to that point, he fought James Toney. He fought Bernard Hopkins. He fought some really good guys. And You had Livingstone Bramble. You had guys like that, and Aaron Pryor, and guys didn't necessarily get the superstar name like a Sugar Ray Leonard, but were incredible. Alexis Arguello and all these guys that were incredibly great fighters that weren't just marketed great, sometimes weren't marketed at all. Like only money they made were when they were in the ring and went broke afterwards because there was no other ancillary forms of, revenue for them to make.
Right.
But, today I see these guys marketed and some of them become commentators and, I just don't see the same level of depth on the playing field in the game of boxing as there used to be. It's like we're excited now because we had Loma and Teofimo, but we would have had that fight on ABC Sports, like on a Saturday afternoon. You
got it, man.
That would have been a thing, or even Tuesday night fights. They would have had some great matchups that would be really, really competitive. So it's like I really miss that time, and I'm critical of that. Like I can look at basketball, pro basketball, and say the guys run faster and jump high than back in the old days. The rules are different to where you can't foul them now, and there's no violence, and you have to be gentlemen when you play basketball now.
All true.
In football, there's a scheme thing, and it's almost like a science. You can't just – it's like everything now is technical with football, and that's evolved as well. But I look at some things, and I think boxing sometimes is taking a step back. And, some sports are just like baseball is probably the same thing. I don't watch baseball the way that I used to, but you still have great athletes. The game is still the game. But boxing, sometimes I just look at it, it's like maybe 20, 25 guys that I look at and say, these guys are top tier, and everybody else, even guys with names, I look at and I say, maybe.
I'm totally with you, man. The combination of there being 4 belts, I think really hurt the sport. And then also, like you said,
WBO and the Ring Magazine belt and IBA.
Right. It's ridiculous. No, and then also now, as you said, as we talked about it on our first conversation, the promoters won't let these guys fight each other. Bob Arum and Don King would always get together, and finally you'd get a fight while these guys were in their prime. Yeah. And man, I'll tell you, the last 10 years, the last 20 years has just been disgusting with overprotection of fighters and overprotection of undefeated records. And like we talked about, Deontay Wilder, great knockout record, but who exactly did he fight?
And I hate to say that, because if I saw Deontay Wilder on the street, he could certainly beat me up.
Oh, hell yeah.
But I can look at Deontay Wilder's, the way he fights, and the guys he was knocking out. Sergey Lomachenko, however you say his name, was the only name that I knew up to a certain point when he was like in the 19th or 20th fight. And he's knocking people out, and everybody's going, ooh, oh my God. It's sort of like how people right now are impressed with Mike Tyson hitting the mitts. And I'm saying, okay, you give me 30 seconds of hitting the mitts, I'll be impressive. I will be incredibly impressive. I'll be in bed the next day. And my blood pressure medicine, they might have to up the doses. But 30 seconds on the mitts, I would look very, very impressive. And I say that to say, if what we're seeing in these clips were sparring, and he's beating up guys that are like younger, and like I heard through the grapevine that when Mayweather was getting ready for Manny Pacquiao, he would bring in the best of the young lions, and he would bring in Spence and spar with Spence, or spar with this guy, spar with that guy, and guys were giving them trouble, and whoever, he'd get the best fighters he could. If I see that with Mike Tyson, and he's even competitive, over 50 doing anything well, you get kudos. Even the fact that he's hitting the mitts is still impressive.
Oh, sure.
But to say that that's a reason why, I read an article the other day that he should be fighting Anthony Joshua. Like they offered him an exhibition with Anthony Joshua for 8 rounds. I remember some of the Brian Nielsen and some of those guys that beat him near the end.
Handed him his ass, absolutely, at the end. It was
maybe he was on cocaine. Maybe he was despondent because of whatever. Maybe he wasn't in the right mind and didn't train or whatever. That said, still these guys that are active guys that are fighting and are 20 years younger, sometimes 25 years younger, and haven't put cocaine in their system. They haven't been, have the same level of wear and tear on their bodies. There's something to be said for that. So, I still love the sport. I still watch. If it was on right now, for everything that I'm saying, I'd still watch. So,
100. Dude, I spent $80 on the Charlo brothers fight, 2 weeks ago and stuff. Fulci wants to know what you think of, as we talked about, the Tyson Roy Jones exhibition that's coming up.
I think, it's only going to be 2-minute rounds from what I hear. And it's no headgear now. I
didn't know that. Go on.
I heard it's no headgear. I think it's dangerous anytime people are throwing punches at each other. Anytime you have that, it's dangerous. That said, and I'll watch. Let me say that.
Yeah, me too.
Regardless, I'll watch. I'll be one of the 10 million people that watch. That said, I think both guys have seen better days. It's funny. I saw an interview the other day where someone was saying that Roy was the fresher one because Roy fought like 3 years ago. Well, Roy's been knocked out cold like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And Roy has been beaten up a few times. Mike really has. He took a beating from Lennox. He lost a couple of fights where he just said, you know what, the hell with it, I'm not getting up. But he hasn't really. Buster Douglas is maybe 3 or 4 fights where Mike has been beaten to where a guy with that kind of power, that kind of movement, up against a guy that really can't move the way that he used to, is almost like a sitting target. And
I worry about Roy too, man.
I worry about Roy. It's like, and it's not just because of the fascination of Mike Tyson being a killer back when he was younger. It's that no matter who you are, somebody with that kind of strength that still knows how to deliver a punch, if they hit you, they can still hurt you. And that's a lifelong thing.
Absolutely.
It's like he could be 60 years old. If he hits a guy in the right place in the right way, he could still hurt that person.
Dempsey and Billy Conn, literally, Dempsey stopped 2 muggers in his 80s, dropped his cane, and could still punch. And Billy Conn, it was the same thing. He stopped a store robbery in progress because at 74, he could still punch. So you're 100% right, Rodney.
So all of that, I'm concerned about Roy. I think for 2 minutes, Roy might be able to stay away from him. If they're only fighting 8 or 10 rounds, I think it's 8.
I heard 8 2-minute rounds. That's exactly what I heard.
If they're doing that, maybe he can stay away from him for a second. But I could see a body shot putting him down. I could see a liver shot or, something to,
And also back then, when Roy was in his prime, he had leg speed and could juke his body, but he'd always carry his hands low.
Well, I think
that scares me.
The thing about Roy was, and you're right, that brashness and the bravado that worked when he was 25 won't work when he's 55. But that thing with Roy was, it seemed like after the Ruiz fight, when he came back down to 175 and he lost all of that muscle, that whatever he did to those fast twitch muscles that he had, a millisecond of timing is lost. To me, it's nothing. To Roy Jones, and to being able to do that, and to be able to have the endurance and losing that, to me, after the Glenn Johnson fight,
yes,
say Tarver, but after, you could dismiss that as a fluke. But after he didn't look good in the first Tarver fight, and then the second Tarver fight he gets knocked out, and then in the Glenn Johnson fight he's knocked out cold. At that point, I understand the need to make money. I understand all of that, but you're not Roy Jones anymore. You're not the Roy Jones as far as a performer. You're still Roy Jones, a human being. But as far as the guy that's invincible, I don't, that guy is now, if he's fighting top competition, if he's fighting those guys, if he's fighting me, he can knock me out forever. But if he's fighting top competition, some of those fights against like the second Hopkins fight, the one where he fought the guy, what's the undefeated British guy, Calzaghe.
Yeah.
Calzaghe, Jeff Lacey, I think. He fought Trinidad. He fought none of those were really fights in the spirit of the Roy Jones that I know and love.
I didn't. That's funny because I didn't remember him. Was there another British guy that he ducked? Because
Michalczewski or whatever his name.
That's right, Michalczewski. Thank you. Yes, indeed. You're 100% right. Because it was like
fight him in his prime, and he
they
couldn't. He said he didn't want to fly over to Germany. And
that's exactly what it was. Yes, Darius Michalczewski.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I'm with you, man. And again, that's the thing. It's like you said. Even a millisecond is a world of difference. Hell, that it's happened to all the greats when they stayed too long. Sugar Ray against Terry Norris.
Oh, Sugar Ray against Hector Macho Camacho.
Didn't he win that fight, or did he lose?
No, he lost that fight. He got knocked out in the 5th round. He got knocked out in the 5th round, and he said he knew. He was a commentator, and Camacho was kept egging him on, and he said, "You know what? I want to fight," and he got knocked out in the 5th round.
Well, and Oscar is supposedly in training too.
So am I. Yeah. So am I. I'm in training. Oscar's not coming back. Oscar's not coming back.
That's awesome. All right. Well, you never know. I mean, God, did you see Chavez Sr. fight on the undercard of his son's fight?
Yes and no. It was funny. It was on DAZN. And
yes. I watched.
It wasn't in English, I don't think. And so I got frustrated because I couldn't get any of the facts because my Spanish isn't that good. And I'm watching this headgear, and I can't tell Chavez from the other guy because they both got this headgear.
That's true.
And then I'm mad at his son because his son could have been a halfway decent fighter, but he's blowing it. And,
Rodney, I love this. Honestly, I'm so you don't know how many like non-boxing fans I have to go through before I finally get someone that will talk with me about boxing. So this is fantastic. Seriously,
I got DAZN. I got the app on my phone, and I watch everything that comes. And when they tell me somebody's good, the Devin Haney's and the Gervonta Davises and all these guys, big up to Baltimore, Gervonta, and it's like, I follow everybody. I watch the sport. I love the sport. I just don't see the same level of craft and discipline
100%
as I saw back in the day. I see the same level of talent when you say guys that can deliver a punch and guys that have great footwork and all the stuff you can learn in the gym. But when I see that killer instinct of like, love him or hate him, to be Floyd Mayweather, took a lot of discipline. You could say he didn't fight Margarita. You could say he didn't fight Paul Williams. You could say those things.
It's a short list.
But to be who he was for so long, not just the businessman part of it, but to have the degree of discipline to keep himself in a certain place in the world we live in today. I'm like, high five to Floyd for being so great for so long. And I say Hopkins the same thing. Hopkins could fight to 50. Not because he should have been fighting to 50, but the level of competition that he's fighting was like what we're talking about right now with those guys. Could he fight? Could a 43-year-old Bernard Hopkins fight 25-year-old Sugar Ray Leonard? Probably not. No. Probably a 25-year-old Roberto Duran, a 25-year-old Aaron Pryor, any of those, Livingstone Bramble, any of those guys. And it's like, but today's crop of fighters, he could go to 51 years old and still be competitive just by skill, just by being able to trick. When he beat Kelly Pavlik just on skill alone and experience.
Yep.
And, he beat, what's his name? Not just Tarver, but it was the brother who had the belts twice. He's in jail right now. I forget his name. I went to his fight, the second one. Taylor. Jermaine Taylor.
Oh, Jermaine! I didn't know Jermaine Taylor was in jail. Jesus.
Yeah, well, he was.
Wow.
I don't know if he still is.
That's heartbreaking, man. Oh,
yeah,
Jesus.
I think he had some issues with just getting hit as much as he was hit. And
that's like Michael Nunn. Michael Nunn,
got in trouble
when he, at the end of his career.
Pernell Whitaker is the same. Not Pernell.
I was going to say,
what's his name that beat Chavez? Pernell just passed away.
Yes, Meldrick Taylor.
There you go.
Heartbreaking.
Same thing.
Oh my God. So sad.
Riddick Bowe seems to have.
Yeah.
And didn't really have a long career.
No.
It's like Riddick fought Holyfield a bunch of those times, and then Galata, and never fought Lennox Lewis. And what's his name? Galata just hit him below the belt, those 2 fights.
Yeah, Galata, man, Chicago guy, but at the end of the day, not a clean fighter.
There was a Chicago Polish guy that used to get a big crowd. I forget his name.
Because Galata's the Polish guy.
I know it was another one. It was another guy. He was a contender. He never won a belt. Forget his name.
Weight class? What weight class?
Heavyweight. He was a heavyweight. And went down to cruiser. I forget his name. As soon as we hang up, I'm going to remember.
Was it Tomas Adamic?
Yes, him. And there was another guy that just lost. That was a Polish guy. That was a contender, and I think he was a PBC guy. He was a heavyweight, and he just got knocked out.
Oh, okay, because it wasn't. It's not Usyk is a zone guy, and he's not. He's not a Chicago guy.
It was another guy, and he had another Polish following. And
I know who you're talking about. He was a guy from New York.
Yes,
Yep, I know exactly. I forget his name.
I forget his name. And
yes. That was a cool upset.
And he seemed like, it was upset. And it seemed like he had some skill. And the other guy just kept fighting back long enough. And it was a tall, skinny guy.
Yep.
He was fighting back just enough to, like, the guy got tired. He just did the boop and knocked him out.
That's funny. Jared Jason's back. What was your best experience meeting any of the boxers? I bet you got a ton of them.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think hung out with Mike Tyson a little bit way back.
That's great. Did you ever meet Ali?
Yes, I did.
So did I.
Muhammad Ali.
You got to always put him at the top of the list.
He's signing my book. His last book with Thomas Hauser.
Yes, an incredible biography of Ali. I love that book.
A white cover. It's like that sign. I have a picture of him and I together.
Oh wow.
Bunch of guys that I pass, you pass like ships in the night at different functions and different things. And I wish I had taken more pictures with some of these guys.
I hear you, man.
I'm an introvert, when it comes to that type of thing. But my heroes. And it's like as soon as I get away from them, man, I wish I had taken a picture. As soon as I get in the car. But Shane Mosley, me
too.
There was a period of time where I was actually going broke. Going to fight to Vegas. It's like the only way I could decompress in life was big fights coming and whenever it was coming, and I could make it. You're very welcome. A big fight was coming, and how can I just get going to get on that plane on a Friday and go to the O show or go to something on Friday night. Saturday, I'm going to the fight. And then Sunday I'm coming home and going back to the grind. But that was my life. I had breakfast with Harold Letterman after the Mayweather De La Hoya fight.
That's excellent. Oh, that's amazing.
And I sat next to Jim Lampley on the way back to LA.
Oh wow.
And but it was like and people didn't understand. And I remember taking 2 of my friends from Maryland to Hopkins Taylor 2, and they didn't get it. And we were sitting next to Bert Sugar, and I had the greatest conversation with Bert Sugar.
The best.
And they were like, dude, it's better to see it on TV because you can tell and they tell you what they can. You don't understand. You don't understand. This is the greatest thing ever. And one day you're going to really, you're going to regret, not getting into this thing with me more. But yeah, I love the fight game. And, I love it. It's still one of those things that makes life worth living.
100%, Rodney. I told you, Bert Sugar, for viewers that don't remember, I wrote for Bert Sugar for several years. And in the 90s in particular, really got to be his wingman at several big fights. And I remember when Lennox Lewis fought Hasim Rahman, the rematch. And that was my best fight weekend. And we were hanging with the great Emmanuel Stewart before he passed away.
Lennox killed him in that rematch.
Yes, he did. Oh my God, he destroyed him. Absolutely. And
I saw James Toney and Rahman in Atlantic City at one of those Trump places. But continue, go ahead.
No, it's all good, man. Because it was a great week, and really, like early in the week, Emmanuel was like, "I promise you, Lennox is going to destroy him." And we literally saw him like a couple hours after the fight, late Saturday night or whatever. And he looks at us. He's like, "What'd I tell you? That he was going to destroy him?" That's exactly right. And what happened?
that Oliver McCall Lennox Lewis fight.
Yes,
the first one. When,
another Chicagoan. Yeah, the Atomic Bull.
Oliver beat him the first time, and the second one he broke down, and started crying.
Crying. Yeah, he was an unstable guy. Honestly, man, and truly, obviously, you're a massive fight fan like I am. It is really heartbreaking how corrupt the sport is.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and it's a carnival. It's a bunch of carnies playing with millions of dollars and a lot of unstable guys that wind up in jail or wind up broke, and it's heartbreaking. But I cannot deny the drama of watching a fight in action. And that's why it was even a pleasure, obviously, watching last Saturday with Loma and Lopez and everything.
When I think about guys like Trevor Berbick, I think Trevor Berbick passed. I'm not sure. But
I think you're right.
And, the Larry Holmes there's so many great fighters. And very few prepared for life outside of the ring. It's like that's the saddest thing. And you hear about these guys making $100 million, $200 million, and eventually going broke. And I understand how you can do it if you don't pay your taxes and divorces and kids and just living a certain lifestyle. It's like, I can see how, Holyfield needs to work right now, talking about coming back into the ring. I get it. You got 13 kids, or however many it is.
Yeah, Jesus,
it's that thing. But while they were gladiators, and maybe that's a necessary part of being a gladiator, is not thinking like you and I do. Because I'm holding on. I just want to keep holding on.
I hear you, man. Seriously, we can wrap up, man. I thank you very much for that boxing day.
Oh, we're gonna do it again. We'll do it again.
Great. Hey, and we're gonna remind people that you're gonna have a great panel during Baltimore Comic-Con, and this is the place to see it. BaltimoreComicConLive.com. It's gonna be great. Rob Meyer Burnett, one of my friends who knows the entertainment business as well as he knows the comic book business, is gonna have great questions for you. You might be treading over the same subjects that we just did.
That's fine. Yeah.
But no, I'm looking forward to it, man. And really, we are so thrilled that you're doing this. And I know the Baltimore people feel that way. I know my mainframe guys all feel that way as well, man. Seriously, it's
likewise. I hope when the world reopens, we can do it live one day, and I can come back to Baltimore and go to the Inner Harbor and Northwestern High School and all the old places I went to back then.
Absolutely, man. And I hope to see you either at a Baltimore or at a San Diego or a Long Beach or something like that. And, or hell, let's be honest, maybe we'll see each other ringside at a fight as well.
That'd be nice. The Barclays. We'll meet at the Barclays, and once New York opens again, and see a PBC fight. We'll see Deontay Wilder after he loses to Tyson Fury this third time. Build his career.
This is true. Absolutely, man. Who do all right, real fast, what do you think Fury against Joshua? Because I think that's going to happen before the third Wilder fight.
Fury.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if Andy Ruiz could break through Joshua's defense and knock him out, Tyson Fury hasn't always looked great. I remember Steve USS Cunningham knocked him down in a fight before. And, it's been hit or miss with Fury. But I will give Fury this. As a technical big man who knows how to fight, conserve his energy, and play in the Marcus of Queensberry rules, like in the technical style, Anthony Joshua always seemed to be like manufactured. He reminded me of that dude Grant. I forget his name.
Michael Grant, 100%, man.
Reminded me of Michael Grant in the way that Michael Grant had all the physical tools. He could, do a lot of physical stuff. But as soon as he came up against Lennox Lewis, who was a real guy, all of that was exposed. And, it's like, it feels like it's the same thing. I don't think it would be a knockout because I don't think that's who Tyson Fury is. And I think Joshua has more skills and discipline than Deontay Wilder does as far as the boxing part of it. It's like not as a human being and not as an athlete. But when it comes to boxing, you could just see Fury outsmarting him in the ring, as they were fighting. It wasn't even just about dominating him physically. He knew that, when a guy's got one punch, he's got one thing that he can do, and you take that one thing away from him. Psychologically, I think it does something to him. When it comes to Anthony Joshua, I think Anthony Joshua has more than one thing that he could do. But that said, I don't know if he has 2 or 3 things that he can do. If that makes sense.
No, it does. And God, if I may, real quick, Michael Grant story. So we're at, I think it was a tune-up that De La Hoya was doing for, I think it might have been the Trinidad fight. I don't remember. But it was me, Bert Sugar, a buddy of mine from Chicago, Mike North, who was a Chicago sports reporter. And did I say Bud Schulberg? Bud Schulberg, the great Bud Schulberg. And Michael Grant comes by. And we all say hello to him. And as soon as he's out of earshot, I ask, am I nuts or is Michael Grant a figment of HBO's imagination? And Bud and Bert immediately like, oh, my God, yes, oh, totally. And saying exactly what you said. And I think that's also, like you were saying about Anthony Joshua, a lot of these modern fighters, they come to boxing later.
Yeah.
And they don't. And that's one thing about Ruiz. Ruiz started when he was a little kid. Yeah. So he knows how to be a two-handed fighter.
He doesn't have the discipline to be in shape for a fight. He reminds me of what's the other guy? I think he's fighting for PBC now, but
another doughy guy like that.
Another doughy guy like who I'm talking about. He's a heavyweight too.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you do. He was a contender for a while.
Oh, and Chris Arreola.
Yes, I told you knew who I was talking about. It's like Chris Arreola was the same guy. He's got skills, he's got heart, he's got all of that, but he looks like me. And
yeah, he's in the big and tall section. Absolutely.
You can't fight like me. You can't look like me in the ring. You got to look like you belong in the ring. If you look like me, it's already giving away what's going to happen eventually. Someone's going to tire you out. You might have a couple good rounds, but eventually, you're going to get tired. That's the nature of, a poor diet.
Remember Joe Hip?
Yeah.
Joe Hip was like that too. Exactly, man. No, you're killing me.
But then there were guys like Johnny Thunder. He used to fight on the USA Network. He had an incredible body. He was like Polynesian or something. He used to fight.
I remember him. That's great.
But he was undefeated for a while, and the USA Network had their own guys for a while.
Oh, sure.
And as soon as they took one step up,
100%, man.
But yeah.
That's hilarious. You're killing me. All right, Rod. Go ahead. What's that?
I said we could do this for days.
Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry, Rodney. I'll wrap up, man, because it's your evenings. Your evening's getting started, and I don't want to keep you from whatever you got to do, or even if it's just chilling. So seriously, this is terrific. So join Rodney. I want to look on the schedule and confirm. I believe it's Saturday. Am I right?
I'm not sure.
Or is Sunday? I'm looking right now. What day was Rodney? Rodney, you are Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So that's 3 o'clock Pacific. Absolutely, man. So if you enjoyed the conversation, Rodney's in great hands with Rob Burnett. More talk about Killadelphia, more talk about past and future comics, and a lot of television work as well. And your point of view, Rodney, it's great. I don't know how much boxing he'll talk with you, but we'll see.
Okay, you got my fix for me. You helped me with my fix for now. So until next time, we'll do it again.
Thanks a lot for your time tonight, Rodney. Really appreciate it.
Brother. You take it easy.
You too, man. Rodney Barnes, everybody. How about that? Wasn't that fantastic? It was a pleasure talking to him. I honestly, man, like when we first met, we're talking comics, we're talking TV, and he told me he went to Howard University, one of the historic black colleges. And I knew Rock Newman went to Howard. And I actually got the chance. Rock Newman was Riddick Bowe's manager. Got the chance to interview Rock a few times in the 90s. And that's when Rodney's like, oh, I'm a big fight fan. And as he said, I go to all these fights. And I'm like, oh, Rodney, you opened the door. What did you do? I'm like, we're going to have to talk boxing now when you're on Word Balloon. And obviously he rolled with it because we just did it for about a half hour. That was fantastic. I hope you enjoyed it. Forgive the tangent, kids. But, I'm a boxing fan. And like I said, I'm always looking for another boxing friend. To like, what do you think? What do you think's going on? So anyway, lots of fun. Hey, it's going to be a light Word Balloon Live week because we're preparing Baltimore Comic-Con. Cannot rave enough about all the great stuff we've got going in Baltimore. If I may, why don't I tell you a little bit about more of what we got going on? So starting on Friday night, we're going to start with an AWA panel that I'm moderating. That's going to be great. 6 o'clock, I am moderating the Justice League Bwahaha. That's right. J.M. DeMatteis, Keith Giffen, Kevin McGuire, they're back together to tell us all how it started and some of the great memories of the classic Justice League run of the 80s and 90s. Then Brian Bendis will be talking to Jerry Conway. One-on-one, no moderator. They don't need one. Brian and Jerry sitting down, comparing notes. Justice League to Avengers, Superman and Spider-Man, you name it. Then in the studio, 1985, that happens at 8 Eastern. And that's going to be Dean Haspiel, who was an assistant at the same time with Dennis Cowan, Bill Sienkiewicz, Walt Simonson, I got to think, and Howard Chaykin. I was going to say, I had to make sure I got all four of them. Then we're going to have the drink and draw starting at 9, and that's going to be amazing. 12 A-list artists doing their best, from Becky Cloonan and Ryan Stegman to a lot of others whose names aren't immediately coming to mind right now. 10 o'clock, we've got a Strange Adventures panel. That's going to be great. Sal Crivelli talking with Tom King, Mitch Gerrits, and Doc Shaner. And then we're going to wrap things up with my buddy Pat Schumacher and I talking about the Harley Quinn animated series. That's all just on Friday night. How about that? Amazing stuff on Saturday, like Miller's Pub, a great conversation with Mark Miller. And I'll be moderating that at noon Eastern. 1 o'clock, King in Black, Donnie Cates, Ryan Stegman talking about the great event that's going on with Venom. We've got a horror panel at 2 o'clock. Evil Ted Smith, an amazing pop culture creator who manufactures armor, helmets, and weapons of cosplay. That's going to be great. Then we're going to have Win Tom's Comics, Tom Brevoort in trivia. That's going to be amazing, and people are going to try and stump him. If you remember Win Ben Stein's Money, it's going to be that kind of thing. Then a Shelley Bond spotlight. I am very proud of putting this together. Shelley, the incredible Vertigo, IDW, Black Crown, and independent editor, is going to be interviewed by the great Vita Ayala. I look forward to that conversation. I'm really proud of a lot of these amazing conversations we're having with creator to creator. It's, of course, Ringo Day as well on Saturday, and we're going to do the nominee panels are going to be going on, where a lot of the nominees are going to be talking from noon until 6. Then I will be hosting the red carpet from 6 to 8 with Sal Crivelli and Christy Blanche. And then starting at 8 o'clock, we'll have the Ringo Awards live. Kevin Smith, Jeff Johns, among the presenters that will be joining us for this incredible conversation. And then Joe Henderson will be joining me at 11 to talk about Lucifer with all the Lucy fans. So that's going to be amazing. And we're going to have a Dungeons & Dragons tournament going on with Jim Zub and Cecil Castellucci and a whole bunch more. I also forgot to mention some other great highlights on Saturday. 1 o'clock Eastern, I'll be talking to Philip Kennedy Johnson about his coming run on Superman's Future State, the great DC event that'll be happening. Then Terry Moore has the spotlight. That'll be a great panel. Louise Simonson will be talking to Christy Blanche. That'll be amazing. And then a spy comic book panel featuring Jeff Parker and Stephanie Phillips, maybe some others as well. We'll see. Still waiting to get confirmation on some of these other panelists. Sunday, we start with Scotty Young doing a spotlight at noon. 1 o'clock, Al Ewing. 2 o'clock, Dave Gibbons and Tom King in conversation. 3 o'clock, Star Wars comics. 4 o'clock, John Campea doing movie trailers, a love story, a movie he is making about the hype behind some of the great genre fiction movie trailers of the last 30 years. Streets of Marvel at 5 o'clock. Rodney Barnes, who we just spoke to, is going to be on at 6. 7 o'clock on Sunday, it's going to be Kirby Fourth World Remix. That is going to be Tom King and Cecil Castellucci talking about their New Gods books, like Mr. Miracle, and, of course, Cecil's run on the Female Furies. I think that's going to be an amazing conversation with Rod Burnett. Then the Marvel Age, Mark Waid interviewing Tom Brevoort. 9 o'clock, Crime Alleys of Gotham is going to be amazing with a bunch of Batman creators. 10 o'clock, this is amazing. Kingdom Come voiceover theater. You're going to have Mark Waid overseeing a voiceover production, featuring Susan Eisenberg as Wonder Woman and George Newbern as Superman, acting out the most dramatic scenes from the incredible Alex Ross, Mark Waid graphic novel, Kingdom Come. This is going to be epic. I can't wait for that. I will be moderating that panel. I had to. Come on. Are you kidding me? Of course I had to be there for that. And then at 11 o'clock, to wrap things up for the convention, we're going to have a great Powers conversation with Brian Bendis, Mike Oming, and myself. That's amazing. And a few other interesting things happening on Sunday, like we're going to have a life drawing session. That's going to be amazing. I really can't. Honestly, if you're an artist, you won't want to miss that. Here Comes the Boom with Ross Ritchie and Philip Sablik, talking about all the amazing stuff Boom has been doing lately. 50 Years of Overstreet, featuring Todd McFarlane, interviewed by J.C. Vaughn, and an all-star cast of artists that have contributed to the Great Overstreet Price Guide and those amazing covers they've done over the years. And then the Bitter Root panel, where Shelley Bond, the editor of Bitter Root, will be talking to our friends Sanford Green, David Walker, and Chuck Brown about this incredible comic book. So those are just some of the things. Again, if you need or want more information about Baltimore Comic-Con, go to this website, BaltimoreComicConLive.com. All right. I hope you enjoyed all this. I hope you enjoyed the commercial for Baltimore Comic-Con. We're all very proud with what we were able to do in terms of making these panels. And that's why I've been hyping them up both on the audio and also video versions of Word Balloon. So please join us this weekend. All starts Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Go to BaltimoreComicConLive.com for the full schedule. You won't want to miss it. Thanks a lot for watching tonight. We will talk again for To the Outer Limits late tomorrow night, 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 Eastern. Until then, stay safe, stay happy,